Everyone, are you ready for things to get a little spooky? Well, if you're interested in the land of enchantment's ghost stories, this is the must-have book. It's called Ghost Stories of New Mexico, and we're so pleased to welcome author Antonio R. Garces this morning to New Mexico Style. Welcome to the show.
Welcome.
I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for being here to join us, because I think a lot of people are so intrigued by ghost stories.
I love ghost stories, but how long have you been writing ghost stories?
I've been writing ghost stories since 1989.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did you get into writing ghost stories?
Basically, my parents and grandparents were both involved as medicine people with the Apache Nations and Otomi Nations, because I'm Native American.
Sure.
So I was literally born into this subject. So I decided at one point when I lived in Santa Fe to actually start writing the first ever book of New Mexico ghost stories.
I think that's so fascinating.
Yeah, it is awesome.
And I think people really want to know, what are people talking about when they talk about ghost stories? What are some of the stories here, right here in their home?
Well, there's plenty to talk about. There's a plethora of stories here in the state of New Mexico. And I'm writing my second volume, 2 of New Mexico, which will be out this year.
Oh, good.
Excellent. Now, where do you get your information from?
I actually my books differ from any other ghost story books ever written in that I've actually gone out and interviewed people for their first-hand accounts. They're not stories handed down from generation.
Okay.
I'll interview you if you've had a personal encounter with a spirit or ghost.
So it's not third party. It's not coming from someone else.
No, not
right
at all.
From firsthand.
That's excellent.
I love that. Well, who's your biggest fan base?
Believe it or not, young girls.
Really?
Wow.
Young girls.
Interesting.
There you go, Nikki.
Well, that makes sense. Well, I'm not that young, but but it makes sense. It does make sense because, especially when you're a little girl, we do slumber parties, and that's the big thing. We like to talk about ghost stories, and when you can keep it local and talk about something that's right here.
That's right. It came as a shock to me to know that, because I assumed there would be boys.
No.
Right.
But it's girls.
Wow.
I get that.
They want to get spooked.
I do get that. Well,
now,
Twilight series, vampire stuff.
That's true, yeah,
right?
they're into it.
And people are really into that, especially the little girls.
Right, now speaking of local, you were published right here in Moriarty?
In Moriarty, yeah.
Great.
So tell us, who was that?
Me.
There you go, self-published, very nice.
Perfect.
Way to go.
That's fabulous. Well, okay, there's something you said that when I was looking at your bio originally, I thought something was really interesting, a point that you made, which was you'd rather people walk away with more questions than answers when they read your book, which I thought was a really interesting statement.
That is nice.
Yeah, I usually, when I lecture around the country, and I do, and I've even lectured in Cambridge, England, and been invited to lecture there, people who say that they have the answers to all the questions of the paranormal really don't. How could they?
Right.
Exactly,
how could they? So I don't put a false face towards the public. I say, listen, the purpose of my books is to start you on that investigative journey.
Love that.
Continue it, and it'll never end.
And I think that makes a good book in general. It's a good. It makes a good movie. It makes a good TV show. I think
does,
in general,
definitely.
right?
Oh, yeah.
To be able to walk away with more questions and get people talking.
It's interesting. It's really interesting.
What's really interesting is that when I first started writing the first book ever, I noticed that there was not one book ever written of ghost stories in New Mexico. So I wrote the first ever book of New Mexico ghost stories.
How cool.
I then went on to write the first book of Arizona ghost stories.
Very nice.
Nobody ever wrote one. There was a lot of ghost towns and Billy the Kid, but never specifically of ghost stories.
That's fabulous.
That is
And I went and wrote California and Yosemite National Park, Colorado,
The ingenue, I love
and the
it.
newest one, American Indian Ghost Stories of the West.
Well, that's great.
Good for you.
Luckily, we have 52 states. You can keep going, keep
Oh,
going.
there's enough in the Southwest.
I know.
To keep you busy.
That's excellent.
Yeah, you can definitely stay busy, and I think people can definitely stay busy reading your books. And the way to do it is how can they?
Where
get
can we get it?
You can go to Amazon.com. You can go to BarnesandNoble.com. Go to local bookstores here,
Great.
or I have my own website, which is ghostbooks.biz.
Ghostbooks.biz.
B-I-Z.
Great.
Now, if I'm watching the program right now and I want to get a hold of you, how do I get a hold of you? Because I want to tell you my ghost story or whatever.
Google my name. I'm all over the web. Antonio R. Garces or New Mexico Ghost Stories.
Okay.
I'll come up.
You will be Googled. I promise you that.
You will be Googled.
Yes.
And you're also organized.
That's painful. Don't Google me on camera.
No, you're also, just before you go, I just want to mention, you're organizing the first ever National Ghost Conference here in New Mexico,
It's going to take place this October. And the website is theghostexpo.com.
Okay, perfect.
Excellent.
And this weekend, I'll be at the Expo Fairgrounds.
Okay.
I'll have a booth there.
Fabulous.
And I'll also have, I'll be at all the Pueblo feast days, most of them, with
Very
a booth
nice.
there.
Very nice.
Very cool. So if you have a ghost story to tell, you know who to tell it to, and maybe, just maybe, your story will be published too. Antonio, thank you so much for joining us today.
Appreciate it.
It's really a pleasure to meet you, and we're looking forward to more books from you in the future. And there's a lot more coming up, so stick around.